This comment is inspiring me to revisit a question that I revisit every once in a while that I find fascinating. And that question is, do demons and angels really exist, or are they projections of the mind? Having grown up Christian and long ago abandoned that ideology, I dispensed with the idea long ago that there was a personal God, that is a God who can be described with any kind of human attributes, especially ones that strike me as perfectly absurd, like God is a man with a beard sitting on a cloud in heaven. Likewise, I have rejected the idea that there is some cartoonishly evil figure called the devil who has horns and lives in hell and all that. As part of abandoning that theology, I also gave up on the idea that there are angels and demons. And since then, I have never had any kind of experience that would convince me otherwise. That said, I am well aware that there are many people who believe in angels and demons, not just people who are living now, but people who have lived throughout time. There are countless experiences of this kind. Some of these people are people who I know and respect, and therefore I have tended to always be sort of agnostic on the subject. Interestingly, the question about the ontological status of angels and demons has tended to fall into two fairly distinct camps. On one hand, you have the Western idea, especially in the Abrahamic faiths, which is that God is real, the devil is real, therefore angels and demons are real. On the other hand, in the East, again, this is a generalization, there tends to be an idea that these things are projections of the mind. The Eastern perspective has always been more attractive to me, not only because I've never had these direct experiences myself, but philosophically it's always made more sense. The analogy of darkness is not the opposite of light, it's the absence of light, which is to say that bad things happen not because there is an evil force making them happen, but rather because there is a lack of goodness. For a couple of years of my life, I lived in India in a Tibetan community in exile. And in all of the tankas and the temple art and so forth, there were always depictions of demons, and the teaching was always that these demons are not actually real. There is a famous book called the Tibetan Book of the Dead, wherein it is said that one going through a death experience will encounter these demons. And the instruction is to understand that they are projections of the mind, and by understanding this, one can get through these demons and get to the white light. As many people will know, the Tibetan Book of the Dead was rewritten and repurposed by Timothy Leary and his Harvard colleagues Ralph Metzner and Richard Alpert, who became Ram Dass. And in that book, they talked about how one may encounter these kinds of seemingly external entities during the peak of a psychedelic voyage. And I mention this because a psychedelic voyage is indeed the place where these so-called external entities very often show up, most notoriously with DMT. Indeed, in one of the earliest and most famous psychedelic research projects using DMT, which was conducted by Dr. Rick Strassman, he wrote about it in his book called DMT, the Spirit Molecule. Almost all the participants reported having contact with entities that they considered more real than real. The interesting side note here is that Dr. Rick Strassman, who conducted the experiments, before the experiments he was a Buddhist and was inclined to think that these entities were projections of the mind. But after all of his participants, most of them reported having these experiences, he was forced to reconsider his position, and now he is agnostic. I myself have had experiences with this molecule, but not with these external entities, so therefore I too remain agnostic. How about you?